I never thought my life would spiral into this much chaos because of something as simple as a bedtime. But that's where it all began. My dad had just remarried, and within days of moving his new wife, Claire, into our house, things started to shift in ways I couldn't explain. At first, I thought it was just the awkwardness of blending families. She'd smile at me in front of my dad, always sugary sweet, asking how school was or whether I needed help with homework. But when he wasn't around, her eyes would harden like glass, and the tone of her voice cut through me like a knife. The first night she moved in, I came home from practice, tired and sweaty, and found my bedroom door half open. That was weird. I always shut it before leaving. I stepped inside, and my heart sank. Half of my posters were pulled down from the wall, my desk had been moved, and my closet door was open, with some of my clothes pushed aside. Sitting on my bed, legs crossed like she owned the place, was Claire. She was scrolling through her phone, not even looking at me when I froze in the doorway. "This is my room now," she said casually, without raising her head. "Your dad and I talked about it." I blinked, too stunned to answer. "What do you mean, your room? This has always been my room. I grew up here. Where am I supposed to sleep?" She smirked then, finally glancing up at me. "The couch. It's temporary. Don't be dramatic." The couch. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it sounded, but something about the way she said it, so firm, so matter-of-fact, made me realize she wasn't joking. My chest tightened, but before I could even respond, my dad's voice echoed from down the hall. "Everything okay?" he called out. Claire's expression softened instantly, like she flipped a switch. She stood, brushing past me, and raised her voice sweetly. "Just helping him reorganize a little. He's got so much stuff in here." When Dad stepped into view, she hooked her arm through his and leaned her head on his shoulder. He beamed at her like she hung the moon. I opened my mouth to protest, to tell him what she really said, but his eyes were shining with that newlywed happiness, and my words got stuck in my throat. I didn't want to ruin it, not right then. That night, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling in the living room. The springs dug into my back, the blanket was too thin, and every sound in the house felt louder, sharper, crueler than it used to. At 3 a.m., I heard something that jolted me upright, footsteps. They were steady, slow, pacing right outside the living room, stopping near the doorway. I held my breath, waiting for my dad to step in. But no one came. When I finally gathered the courage to peek around, the hallway was empty. I told myself it was nothing, maybe just the house settling. But the footsteps came again the next night. And the night after that. Always at 3 a.m. On the fourth night, I decided to confront it. I sat up, phone flashlight ready, blanket clutched to my chest. When the sound started, heavy and deliberate, my heart pounded so loud I was sure whoever it was could hear it. I whispered into the dark, "Dad, is that you?" No answer. Just the steps, closer this time, like they were circling the couch. Suddenly, the light from the kitchen flicked on. Claire stood there in her robe, sipping water, her eyes locking on mine. She tilted her head, smiling that cold smile. "Can't sleep?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. I wanted to ask if she was the one walking, if she was trying to mess with me, but the words died in my throat. Something in her expression told me she already knew what I'd heard, and she liked it. The next morning, when I tried to bring it up to Dad over breakfast, Claire cut in smoothly. "He's just having a hard time adjusting, honey. Kids his age always exaggerate. You know how it is." She gave me a quick wink when his head was turned, and I nearly choked on my cereal. That was when I realized this wasn't just about losing my room. Claire was playing some kind of game, and I was her only opponent. Every night on that couch, with the footsteps creeping closer at 3 a.m., I felt the walls of my own house closing in. And I couldn't tell if the real danger was inside Claire's twisted smile or something else lurking in the dark hallway. I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache, the kind that makes you feel like your skull is splitting open. My alarm buzzed on the nightstand, and I slapped at it clumsily before finally managing to shut it off. For a moment, I just lay there, staring up at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of sleep that still clung to me. The memory of last night's footsteps outside my bedroom door rushed back like a cold wave, and I immediately felt that mix of fear and dread tightening in my chest. I sat up slowly, every nerve on edge, listening for any sound in the apartment. The place was silent, far too silent for my comfort. Usually, I could hear the faint hum of traffic outside, or the upstairs neighbors walking around. But now it was as though the world itself had been muted. I swung my legs off the bed, feeling the chill of the wooden floor beneath my feet, and forced myself to stand. My mind was screaming at me to check the footage from the camera I had set up, but at the same time, I dreaded what I might see. The laptop sat on my desk across the room, the little green light on the external drive blinking faintly. I pulled the chair back and sat down, my fingers trembling as I logged into the program. The footage from last night loaded up, the grainy black and white recording showing the hallway outside my bedroom. For several minutes, nothing happened, just static silence, the faint shapes of furniture in the background. I leaned in closer, squinting, heart hammering in anticipation. And then there it was. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly through the speakers, and the shadowy outline of something moved across the hall. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a person. At least, not in the way I recognized. The shape was distorted, elongated, its limbs slightly too long, the head tilted at an unnatural angle. It stopped right in front of my bedroom door, and I swear I saw it turn as if it knew the camera was there. A shiver raced down my spine as I hit pause, staring at the blurred figure frozen on the screen. "No way," I whispered aloud, though my voice sounded weak, shaky. "That's not possible." I rewound the footage, then played it again, hoping maybe it was some kind of glitch. But the footsteps were there, clear as day, and the figure was undeniable. My stomach churned with nausea. I felt like I had just confirmed the very thing I didn't want to believe. I wasn't alone in this apartment. Pushing away from the desk, I stood up and pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. My rational brain tried to come up with explanations. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe the old building's wiring caused the distortion. Maybe I was just overtired and imagining things. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong. Something was in here with me. The rest of the morning dragged on like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I made coffee just to keep my hands busy, but I barely tasted it. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the pipes, made me jump. I kept glancing over my shoulder, convinced I would see that distorted figure standing there again. I even left the TV on just for the noise, but it didn't help. The silence behind the sound felt heavier, pressing in on me. Around noon, I finally worked up the nerve to call my best friend, Mark. "Hey," I said when he picked up, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know this is going to sound crazy, but something's been happening here at night." Footsteps, right outside my door. There was a pause. Footsteps. "Dude, maybe you've just been watching too many horror movies." "No, Mark, listen. I set up a camera last night. I've got it on video. Someone, was outside my door. And it wasn't normal." I heard him sigh on the other end. "All right, send me the footage. I'll check it out. But I'm telling you, it's probably just your mind playing tricks on you." I hesitated. Sending it meant admitting I wasn't just imagining things, that I truly believed something unexplainable was happening. But I needed someone else to see it, to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. "Okay, I'll send it." After the call, I sat back down at the desk and played the video again, my eyes glued to the figure outside my door. The more I watched it, the more I noticed, like how its head tilted in this jerky, unnatural way, almost as though it was listening. And worse, the faintest sound in the background. Breathing. Not mine. Not the building. Heavy, ragged breathing right outside my room. I yanked the headphones off and shoved away from the desk, my pulse racing. This wasn't just something to brush off. Whatever was out there, it knew I was inside. And last night, it stopped at my door, like it was deciding whether or not to come in. That night, I didn't know if I'd even be able to sleep. The camera would be rolling again, but a terrible thought gnawed at the back of my mind. What if this time, the footsteps didn't stop at my door? What if they came inside? I closed the laptop, forcing myself not to watch the video again, and sat in silence. My apartment no longer felt like home. It felt like a trap, one I couldn't escape, with something lurking just on the other side of the door, waiting for me to let my guard down. I stopped pretending that the weird sounds at night were just the house creaking. Too much had already happened. The bathroom door slamming by itself, the whispers in the hallway, the feeling of breath on my face when no one was there. I wasn't crazy. I knew I wasn't. And if no one else would believe me, then I had to start collecting proof. That Saturday afternoon, when my dad was out in the garage fixing his tools and my stepmom was scrolling on her phone in the kitchen, I locked myself in the living room and pulled out the cheap motion sensor I'd bought with my lunch money. It wasn't fancy, just a plastic gadget with a blinking red light, but it was enough. I taped it low on the hallway wall right outside the room that used to be mine. Then I sprinkled a thin line of baby powder across the floor. Every tiny step, even a bare foot, would leave a trace. My hands were shaking as I did it, but for the first time in weeks I felt like I was in control. That night, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch early. My dad walked past and tugged the blanket over me, whispering, "Good night, kiddo." He didn't notice the phone clutched under the blanket, already recording. My stepmom lingered a little longer, staring at me like she knew I was faking, before heading upstairs with him. The house finally went quiet. I stared at the microwave clock, glowing green in the dark. 12:14, 1:08, 2:27. My eyelids burned, but I forced them open. I wasn't going to miss it. At exactly 2:59 a.m., the air shifted. It was the same every night. A drop in temperature, like someone had opened a window, even though all of them were locked. The hairs on my arms rose straight up. I held my breath. And then, it started. The motion sensor blinked once, then twice. My phone vibrated softly. Movement detected. The sound of footsteps followed. Heel, toe, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing. They weren't coming from the stairs. They weren't coming from my dad's room. They were coming from the hallway with the powder. My chest felt tight. I pointed my phone camera at the white line on the floor. For a second, it looked smooth, untouched. But then, one oval appeared. The shape of a bare foot. Then another, closer to me. The powder shifted as if pressed by weight, but nothing was there. The footsteps grew louder. My pulse hammered in my throat. I whispered, "Dad?" but no one answered. The air grew heavier, like I was breathing through wet cloth. My phone buzzed again, movement spiking on the sensor. And then I heard it. A voice. My name. Whispered low, almost tender, from the hallway. Not my dad's voice. Not my stepmom's. Something else. Something wrong. I wanted to scream, but the sound froze in my throat. Instead, I lifted my phone higher, the shaky light of the screen barely illuminating the living room. The couch. The wall. Nothing else. But when I turned it back toward the hallway, I swore I saw a shape. Just for a second, something tall and thin, with its head tilted, standing at the edge of the powder. Watching. And then, behind me, a whisper, "Don't look." I spun around so fast the phone almost flew out of my hand. My stepmom was standing there in her robe, her face pale, her finger pressed to her lips. "Do not go toward it," she hissed. Her voice trembled, not mocking, not cruel, but afraid. I had never seen her afraid. "It notices when you watch." My mouth went dry. "You hear it too," I whispered back. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway, then back to me. She nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "It started in your room," she said, her voice breaking. "That's why I wanted it. I thought I could handle it. But it doesn't care who sleeps there. It only cares who pays attention." Her words hit me like ice water. My room. The first night she moved in, when she ordered me to sleep on the couch, had she already known? Had she known something lived in those walls, pacing every night at 3 a.m.? A soft creak came from the bathroom door. Not a slam this time. Just a slow, careful opening, as if someone on the other side wanted to peek out. The smell of damp concrete filled the hallway. I raised my phone, hand trembling. My stepmom grabbed my wrist. "Stop," she whispered. "Don't give it what it wants." "What does it want?" I demanded, my voice cracking. She didn't answer. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. And then the sound came again. The dragging of bare feet across tile, the faint scrape of nails along porcelain. The bathroom. Something was inside. I felt sick. My knees almost buckled. The powder on the floor now showed 3 prints. Then 4. Then, as I stared, the prints began to fade, as if something unseen had stepped back and erased itself. My phone vibrated violently, the sensor log spiking, then crashing to black. The app froze. The screen reflected my face, pale and terrified. But over my shoulder, in the reflection, a darker shadow loomed. Tall, bent, its head inches from mine. I whipped around. Nothing, just the couch in the dark. But the smell lingered, wet plaster, copper rot. And then, from upstairs, my dad's door creaked open. He stumbled out in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "What are you two doing?" he muttered, half asleep. "It's 3 in the morning." He didn't see the powder. He didn't hear the footsteps. He didn't smell the rot. He just yawned, shook his head, and went back into the bedroom. The door clicked shut. Silence crashed down, heavier than before. I turned back to my stepmom. She was shaking. "Do you believe me now?" I whispered, tears burning at my eyes. She stared at the hallway, her face gray in the glow of my phone. And for the first time since she moved in, she didn't smile. She just whispered back, "I never stopped." I couldn't believe what I was seeing on the footage. The hallway outside my room was empty, but the footsteps, they didn't stop. They echoed like someone was pacing back and forth, right outside my door, but there was no one there. I froze, the glow of the laptop screen painting my face pale blue in the dark. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure it would wake Emily in the next room. I leaned closer to the screen, replaying the clip again and again. Each time, the footsteps grew more real in my head, as if they were happening in the room with me. My throat went dry. I whispered to myself, "This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense." Just then, the floorboards creaked in real time, right outside my bedroom door. I snapped my head toward it, my breath catching in my throat. The door handle didn't move, the shadows on the floor didn't shift, but I swore I heard weight shift on the wood. Someone, or something, was standing there, listening. I tried to steady my breathing, counting silently in my head. 1, 2, 3. My hand moved slowly toward the lamp switch on my nightstand, every muscle tight, ready to jump if the door opened. But nothing happened. The silence pressed against my ears, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I forced myself to move. I stood up, each step like it could betray me. I grabbed the bat I kept under my bed, just in case, and tiptoed to the door. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. "Don't open it," a voice whispered in my mind. But another voice, louder, said, "If you don't, you'll never sleep again." I twisted the knob. The door creaked open, revealing the hallway bathed in soft moonlight. Empty, completely empty. The air smelled faintly of dust and something else, like damp earth. My skin prickled. I stepped out slowly, the bat raised. The hallway seemed longer than usual, stretching unnaturally, the shadows clinging to the walls. Emily's door was shut. The living room at the end of the hall looked darker than it should, like the shadows had pulled there. "Hello." My voice cracked, barely audible. No answer, just the faint ticking of the old clock in the kitchen. I forced myself forward, one slow step at a time. The sound of my bare feet on the floor echoed louder than it should have, almost mocking me. Each step felt like it was answered by another, just half a beat behind me, as if someone was mimicking me. By the time I reached the living room doorway, my palms were slick with sweat. I flicked on the light. The bulb buzzed, flickered once, and then cast a weak yellow glow across the room. Everything looked normal. The couch, the coffee table, the blanket Emily had left crumpled on the side. But then I noticed the rug. It had shifted, just slightly, like something heavy had been dragged across it. My stomach turned. I crouched down, running my fingers along the edge. That smell again, damp earth. Stronger this time, clinging to the fibers. The clock chimed. 3 a.m. The sound echoed through the house, deep and resonant, vibrating in my chest. I stumbled back, the bat clattering to the floor. My vision blurred for a moment, and when I blinked, I saw it. A shadow, taller than any man, standing in the corner of the room, where the light didn't quite reach. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, its outline darker than the darkness around it. My skin went ice cold. I grabbed the bat again, my knuckles white. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice barely carried. No reply. The shadow seemed to waver slightly, like heat haze on asphalt, but its form never broke. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, pressing down on me like a weight. The smell of earth was overpowering now, like I was standing at the edge of a freshly dug grave. I gagged, covering my mouth with my sleeve. The shadow shifted. Not a step, not a lunge, just a lean, as if it was bending toward me, curious. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. And then Emily's voice rang out, groggy and confused. "Dad, are you okay?" The shadow vanished, gone in an instant, like it had never been there. I was left staring at an empty corner, the light buzzing faintly above me. My heart thundered against my ribs. I turned, forcing a shaky smile as Emily appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Go back to bed," I whispered, my voice trembling. "It's nothing." But I knew it wasn't nothing. I knew the shadow had been real. And as Emily turned to go back to her room, I noticed something that froze my blood. Her bare feet left faint, damp footprints on the wooden floor, as if she'd been standing outside in the wet earth just moments before. I stumbled back into my bedroom, my chest heaving, my shirt sticking to me with sweat that felt like ice against my skin. My phone was still clutched in my hand, recording, though the screen flickered like it didn't want to work anymore. My eyes darted to the door. It was wide open, the hallway beyond drowned in that unnatural darkness, like the house itself was swallowing the light. "Dad!" I screamed again, though my voice cracked halfway. Nothing. No footsteps, no voice. Only silence, and the sound of breathing. Not mine. Not steady, human breathing, but slow, deliberate, like someone was standing just outside my room, filling the hallway with their lungs. My knees nearly buckled, but I forced myself to hold my ground. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" The breathing stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe it was my imagination. But then I saw it, the faintest outline of a figure shifting in the dark. Too tall, shoulders brushing the hallway ceiling, its head cocked unnaturally to the side, as though bones didn't matter. I staggered back, my heel catching the edge of my bed. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor, its screen facing up. And in the faint blue glow, I saw the figure lean forward. Not walking, stretching, like its spine had no limit. "No," I whispered, pressing myself against the wall. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. I felt like a rabbit trapped in a cage while a wolf circled outside. The figure whispered back, my name, in my own voice. I froze. My nails dug into the paint of the wall. It didn't just sound like me, it was me. Every inflection, every tone, perfect. "Please," it mimicked. "Please stop." I couldn't breathe. My chest locked. I wanted to run, but my legs didn't move. The figure in the hallway took another step forward, and I saw the floorboards dip under its impossible weight. My phone buzzed on the floor, an alert, the camera app glitching, capturing frame after frame like it was desperate to record. I glanced at the screen, and that's when I realized the thing wasn't just in the hallway. It was in the reflection behind me. I spun around so fast, I nearly knocked the lamp off the nightstand. Nothing. Empty room. But the phone camera, still buzzing, showed it, standing right over me, a distorted shadow with my face, smiling too wide. I screamed, grabbed the phone, and hurled it at the wall. The screen shattered, sparks flying. The room went dark except for the moonlight spilling through the blinds. My chest ached, my throat raw from the scream, but the house was silent again. Completely silent. I stumbled toward the door, my hand reaching for the frame. The wood felt damp, as if it had been soaking in cold water for hours. My whole body shuddered. I wanted to leave, to run into the street barefoot, to never look back. But when I peered into the hallway, the figure was gone. Or at least, I thought it was. Until I heard the front door creak open. My heart slammed. "Dad!" Relief and terror mixed in my veins. I staggered down the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. "Dad!" I whispered. No answer. Just the sound of the door slowly closing. By the time I reached the bottom, the lock clicked on its own. And then, footsteps. From upstairs. My room. I froze, staring up into the darkness I'd just left. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but my legs felt nailed to the floor. If Dad came home, if anyone came home, they'd walk right into it. And if I left, it would still be there, waiting. The air grew heavier, pressing on my lungs until I wheezed. The house groaned as if something enormous was moving inside the walls. And then, faintly, from the top of the stairs, I heard it again. My own voice. "I know you're still down there." My body went cold. I staggered back toward the front door, my fingers fumbling with the lock, but it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard I twisted, it was like the metal had melted shut. The footsteps above creaked closer. I pressed my forehead against the door, tears stinging my eyes. "Please, please just let me out." The voice from upstairs chuckled. Low, mocking. And then the footsteps stopped. Silence. I slowly turned my head, staring into the pitch-black staircase. My skin crawled, every nerve screaming at me not to move. But in that silence, I realized the truth. It wasn't trapped in the house with me. I was trapped in the house with it. And if you're hearing this story now, then maybe you'll understand the question that still keeps me awake every single night. What happens when the voice finally stops sounding like mine and starts sounding like yours?